Hey everyone, I'm back again with another strategic analysis. Today I'm going to do the game Forbidden Island. And this one is by the guy who did Pandemic. He designed this one too, Matt Leacock. So it's very similar to Pandemic if you've played it before. Some of the mechanics are pretty similar, but some definite uniqueness to this game too. This one is a lot of fun. When I play tabletop games, the primary reason for me to play them is not about the strategy. That's really a really fun part about it for me. But yeah, that might surprise you if you've seen my videos because they're all about strategies and games. And the reason I want to play though is to sit around with my friends, new friends or old friends, and just have fun playing a game together. And this one is a perfect game for that because you're all working together. It's one of those cooperative games. So yeah, no matter how strategic you are, how much of a hardcore gamer you are, if you're a new player, even if you're, you can even have your younger son or daughter play this game too, and everybody can contribute, and you can all talk about how you want to accomplish the goals in this game and try to win, and everybody can feel like they can help out. You can also change the difficulty level, and you can change it to be pretty easy or one that will work for a younger audience, but then also you can play in the legendary level, which is very, very, very difficult. So it's a very flexible game for the audience, so it's a great addition to anyone's tabletop game collection. You can bring it out depending, no matter who is over at your place for a game night. So yeah, really cool game. So yeah, I'm not gonna go over the rules. I'm gonna assume you know them. I'm not gonna give you a tutorial or more of a review than I really just gave you right there. We're just gonna talk about strategy in this video, and some of the strategies you can use to help increase your winning probabilities or winning chances in a game of Forbidden Island. So yeah, that's about it. I'm gonna start talking about each of the roles that you can take on in this game, what's good about them and what's bad about them, and how to best use them in the game. So the first one I will talk about is the Diver. And the Diver is a role that I didn't like at first, and I'm betting a lot of people who play this won't like this role that much at first. But it is actually pretty good if you know how to use it. Early on in the game, you're never going to use it early on. But the critical point in the game at the end, when you have a lot of the board either flooded or the tiles have sunk into the ocean completely, you're going to have a lot of open spaces, and the Diver can just fly through not only the missing tiles, but also the flooded tiles. So they can just fly around the board pretty quickly. I mean, they're no pilot, so they can't just jump to a space, but the pilot's skill can only be used once, so the Diver can keep using this. So they can move pretty quickly near the end of the game. So that's a time when you do need to get around the board sometimes very quickly to hand off a last treasure card or something to someone, or get back to a Fool's Landing. So it is actually pretty good later on in the game. Another one is the Navigator, and the Navigator can move people, can move someone to spaces, someone else to spaces, which is pretty good. It's one that you just use whenever you have an extra action item. Definitely try to move someone a little closer to whatever they're trying to do, or sometimes if you're not doing something that's critical, use this ability, because moving someone 2 spaces is more than moving them 1 space, so you're being more efficient with your action points, which is important, and is a key to winning this game, is to be as efficient as possible with your action points. So yeah, moving someone 2 spaces is nice, and the only problem is that you're doing it for what you think they're going to need to do in the future, but in between your turn and their turn, things can change. You can get a Water's Rise card, the board can change, and your goals can change. Maybe a tile that they were going after has now sunk into the ocean. So it's good to be more efficient, but it can come back to bite you if something changes where you just move them now further away from what they are going to need to do on their turn. So, but anyway, yeah, it's a decent ability. So next is the Messenger, and the Messenger is the best ability of anyone. You can just send your fellow players any card in your hand. So you're just going to shoot them whatever they need, and it increases the efficiency of the team more than any of the other skills. It's so good. So yeah, you're going to use it. People are going to just give you cards if they walk by, like onto your tile. They will drop off a card to you if they don't need it, so that you can send it off to whoever does need it. So that's going to happen a lot. You're going to get a lot of cards that way, but you're not going to get any treasures. You're going to give cards to other people so they can get the treasures. So that's your job. But yeah, best role in the game, definitely. Another one is the Explorer, and the Explorer can move diagonally, and that's awesome. Usually you'd have to move to get to a diagonal tile. You'd have to go, you'd have to move 2 spots to get there, and this way you can just move one. So you're making your turn more efficient and helping out the team. And also the shoring up diagonally is sweet too. That helps a lot too. So yeah, they're definitely a good one. The Engineer is also another just pretty useful ability. You can get to shore up to adjacent tiles, so you'll use that a lot, and it's another ability that improves over the course of the game, because as the game goes on, more tiles are going to start flooding, and then the Engineer can more easily shore up 2 of those tiles at once. And then also, when your island is inevitably going to shrink down to a smaller size around Fool's Island, or Fool's Landing. So the Engineer, when the Engineer is there on that smaller island, the Engineer can often get to like any part of it and shore it up, shore up multiple tiles on it. So yeah, another ability that improves over time, over the course of the game. And lastly is the Pilot, and the Pilot is a great ability. Awesome. It's very, very good. It would probably be the best, or close to it, with the Messenger, if you could use it more than once. You can only use it once, but still, jump to any part of the board at all. It's so good. You have a helicopter lift, basically, that you have to use an action point on. So that is a good ability. Not much more to say about that, really. So those are the roles and some of the ways to make them more efficient. So now I'm going to talk about shoring up and some prioritization strategies you can use to figure out which tiles you should shore up before others. Because that is very, very important in this game to figure that out. So, of course, the most important tile in the game is Fool's Landing. So if that is flooded, you need to do everything you can to get that shored up. So that would be first priority. Also of equal priority would be if you have a treasure redemption tile of a treasure that you still haven't gotten yet. If you're down to one of those and that one gets flooded, obviously you lose the game if that sinks, so you want to shore that one up also. So those are pretty obvious, and so those aren't very hard for anyone to figure out which that they get first priority. So then when it gets beyond that, that's when it's a little harder to tell sometimes. So it's also very important to keep the area right around Fool's Landing shored up. You don't want to lose that part, because you're going to want to base your whole strategy around that little subsection of the island, and you can let the other parts of the island go away, because you can't keep your whole island intact throughout the whole game on legendary difficulty. So you need to keep the ones close to Fool's Island shored up, and also the paths to any still needed redemption treasure redemption tiles that are still out there that you still need. So you also need a path. You really just keep the path from Fool's Island or Fool's Landing to those redemption tiles that you still need. And then once you get those treasures, then you can let those fall off the sink, because you're going to have to choose which tiles to save and which ones to let go. So of course, if you absolutely can save any tile, I mean, if you have a free action point, or it's actually a really good thing to do to just shore up some arbitrary tile that doesn't even have treasure redemption thing on it or anything, just to keep the flood deck as full as possible. Because once that tile sinks, then you have to remove that tile and the card from the flood deck too that corresponds to it. So if you can keep the flood deck as full as possible, then you reduce the probability that you'll be drawing flood cards of tiles that you actually really care about. So it's still very, very important to just keep as many tiles shored up as possible. That'll just extend the length of your game, which is going to be really important later on. Also, another one you want to shore up that's fairly important is just one that'll be annoying to have missing from your island. So if you have like a tile that is flooded near the center of your island, and you are going to be passing kind of through that frequently for the rest of the game, even if you don't really care about the tile, it's still, and it's not maybe a critical path between Fool's Landing and a treasure redemption tile that you still need. Still want to shore it up because you're going to be using that tile to get around. So it's so any of them in the middle usually are also important to keep shored up to keep from sinking if you can. And so yeah, I mean, you can let the kind of the ones on the periphery, let those go, let those sink, because they're, I mean, if you can save them, but if you have to let one of them go, those are good ones to let go, just because they won't really interfere with your traveling around the island. When you're using sandbags, so when you draw a sandbag, you don't need to use it until you think until there's a chance that that a flood card is going to be drawn or a Water's Rise card is going to be drawn. So until you have a chance of doing that, save the sandbags card. So like, you draw one, let the other player take their turn, move around the board, figure out what to do. Then before they draw a treasure card or a flood card, then that's when you'd want to use the sandbags, because as far as Board Game Geek goes anyway, it sounds like everybody has agreed that you can't, once you draw a flood card that corresponds to an already flooded tile so that it sinks, you can't use a sandbag to shore that up, so that it's just flooded and doesn't sink. So once you draw a flood card, you have to resolve that card before you can use a sandbag. Even though it does say you can use sandbags anytime, it's still, you need to resolve that action, because the rules also say that you need to resolve that immediately. So a little bit of a conflict, but yeah, play by the rules so that you use the sandbag before you actually draw a card that could affect you. So I think that makes the most sense to me too. So what else? When you have drawn 3 Water's Rise cards, you can be absolutely positive that no more Water's Rise cards will be drawn until you reshuffle the treasure deck. And this is a very important thing. It lets everybody kind of like take a sigh of relief, because you know that at least, usually for a couple turns, you're not going to have any chance of drawing Water's Rise cards. So you can kind of look at your island, figure out what you need to do, and you can really strategize those next few turns like no other time in the game to get someone cards that they need. Know that usually shoring up isn't critical. This is usually a great time to just focus more on just getting people cards or shoring up the island to increase the length of time that you're going to have on that island. And that really depends on where you are as far as getting the treasures. So if you are close to getting all 4 treasures, you won't care as much about shoring up that island. You can just get people the cards that they need during that time, then get everybody to Fool's Landing and win the game. But if you are still a ways off, then you need to try to stretch out the game, the time that you have in this game, as much as possible. So those are my shoring up tips. And so next I'm going to talk about the treasure deck briefly. Now, first thing I'm going to talk about is to figure out which of those, which treasure card you're going to go after first, because that'll usually come up early in the game. You just want to focus on one of these treasures to knock out, to get right away. And the first one you'd like to get would be the one whose treasure redemption tiles are the furthest away from Fool's Landing. Because as I mentioned, the island is going to shrink, and you're going to have to let some of these tiles sink. So you'll have some control over that too. So you may you would like to let the tiles furthest away from Fool's Landing fall away if you can. If you can afford to let those go, those would be the ones, because then you can still get to all the treasure redemption islands that you still need on that smaller island. So ideally, you're going to get the furthest away treasure redemption tiles first, get those treasures, then let those tiles fall away, then keep moving in, and hopefully you can get that next furthest away treasure, get that, keep moving in. I mean, ideally you can't always do that, but if you have the luxury, that's what you want to do. So that's important. Also, there are only 5 of each type of treasure in the treasure deck. So if you want to, if you can, obviously you don't want to discard any treasure card of one that you still need, unless you have it amongst the rest of the collective hands in the game too. I mean, then you can. But if you discard one, then you're waiting to draw every single one of the other treasure cards of that type before you can acquire that treasure. So if you ever discard 2 of the same type of one that you still need, oh, that is really bad, because then you have to go through the treasure deck again. So once it goes through, you have to reshuffle it before you have any chance of drawing that last needed treasure card. So you want to avoid that if you can at all. So never discard 2 of the same type if you can avoid it at all. Also, before you draw that last card in the treasure deck, you have an opportunity there to use any of the sandbags or helicopter lifts that you have in your hand. It's a good time to do it, because then you can shuffle those back into the deck when you draw that last card. So it's a good time to just use those. Then that will allow you to have a greater probability a smaller probability of drawing the Water's Rise card. So that will extend the length of your game a little bit. Make it take a little longer to get to the Skull and Crossbones on the Flood Meter. So if you can do that, obviously if you are waiting for one card, like you had to discard 2 of the same type, so if you're waiting for one treasure card of a specific type, then that also adds cards to the deck that will make it a lower probability that you will draw that last card. So something to keep in mind, but usually you want to use those cards up, those helicopter lifts and the sandbags before you draw just before you draw that last treasure card. So that's it for treasures. Next I'll talk a little bit about moving. This game is all about being as efficient as you possibly can with those action points, and moving is an important part of that. So when you're trying to figure out where you want to move, sometimes you have an extra action point or two where you kind of feel like you should use it if it can help you for your next turn at all. So some things to keep in mind here. You can move. It's good to move towards a treasure redemption tile if you're going to need to redeem that treasure eventually. So if you have like 3 of one type and you think that the messenger might be able to send one to you, or somebody else might be able to drop one off so that you'll be able to you'll have 4 at the beginning of your next turn, or you might draw one from the treasure deck. So that if you're getting close to one, it's often good to just move towards that treasure redemption tile, because you're going to need to go there soon anyway. So that is good. Also, if you can move towards a part of the board, if you're not really close to redeeming a treasure, you can help the team out by moving to the area of the board where you expect flood cards, or know that these flood cards are going to be drawn soon. So you may know it because you recently shuffled the flood discard cards onto the top. You got a Water's Rise card, so you had to put those back on the top of the flood deck, so you might know the next 10 cards that are going to be drawn from the flood deck. So if they're all in kind of a similar area, or the majority of them are, or there are some that are going to be drawn where nobody else is in that part of the board, then you can move towards that area so that you can help out the team, because those are likely going to be flooded when it comes around to your turn again. So that is good to do. Otherwise, if you don't know what's in the flood deck, another reason why you might know what's in the flood deck, even if you haven't gotten a Water's Rise card and put the cards back on the top, if you're getting down to that bottom part of the flood deck, then you know that those cards are the cards that you haven't yet drawn yet. So those are the ones that are going to flood next. So if you know a couple of the Bronze Gate and the Iron Gate haven't been drawn yet from the flood deck, and you're getting near the end of it, then you can head towards those two tiles, to make sure to shore them up as soon as they get drawn, because they will be drawn near the end of that flood deck, assuming you've gone through all your Water's Rise cards. But otherwise, if you none of these conditions apply and you just want to move, sometimes you don't want to move at all. Just stay where you are. You're in the best place that you can be right now. But otherwise, just move towards the center of the remaining part of the island. That'll allow you to get to any part of the island if you need to get there as easily as possible. Because sometimes you don't know what you're going to need to do in your next turn. So just move towards the center as a last resort. To wrap things up, I'll discuss how you might lose this game, how you will most frequently lose this game. There's two primary ways you'll lose it. One, drawing that last Water's Rise card that brings you to the Skull and Crossbones on the flood meter. And that will often happen on Legendary when you go through that treasure deck the second time through and you draw those 4th, 5th, and 6th Water's Rise cards right near the top of the treasure deck. And then you lose, and by that point you probably haven't gotten all 4 treasures and are making your way to Fool's Landing. So that's frustrating to be so close and then just get really bad luck in how those Water's Rise cards were shuffled in the deck, and they just came up on near the top of the deck. So that's one way. The other way would be if you get 2 Water's Rise cards in close proximity. So like you draw like a Fool's Landing, or one of the last, maybe your last one of the treasure redemption tiles of a certain type. So you draw those off the flood deck, and then right away you get a Water's Rise card that puts them right back on the top, and then you have to draw them, and you just immediately lose one of the cards that you absolutely need to win the game. So that's the other way that you'll lose the game. So the only I love this game a lot, but that's the only part that is just so frustrating when you play the game perfectly and you still lose. It's just really hard to lose that way, and really frustrating. So that's the only thing I don't like that much about this game. But still, overall, it's still a really great game. I guess in conclusion, it is a fun game that can be played by anyone of any tabletop game, strategy, skill level. Anyone can play it, all ages, and you just change the difficulty level depending on who you're playing with. So that's really cool, and yeah, it just brings you into this Forbidden Island world and away from the distractions of computers and internet and cell phones, and except for that one guy who's texting the whole time you're playing the game, and everybody is really annoyed by him. So if that's you, you know who you are. But so unless you're that guy, you can all just sit down. Anyone, friends and family can just sit down and play this game and have a lot of fun, just kind of being lost in this world and trying to get these treasures before the island sinks into the ocean. And so yeah, it's a really fun game. So I hope these strategies will help you in your game and your team. And otherwise, I guess go get those treasures and get off the island. And until next time, keep watching my videos. ForbiddenLimb.com is my blog. So check that out. Check on YouTube for search for Forbidden Limb for any of these videos. Comment below. Let me know what other games you want me to cover. And until next time.